Okay, we're going to go ahead and start this. Uh, I really appreciate you guys being here today, and I just want to give you a little bit of background. My name is Jason Johnson. Let me throw my video up here so you can actually see what it looked like. My name is Jason Johnson. I'm the president of Johnson Business Technology Solutions. And just so you know, in the back, so you understand, I'm not a professional teacher. I'm an engineer by trade. So what I'm gonna go through this, and I want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, please ask us when we're going uh, through this. Also on the line, we have Andrew Patterson. He's an engineer on our team. He's been with us for 4 years. He helps a lot of our customers out in the security compliance, deal with financial, PCI, HIPAA, and those kind of things with our varying customers throughout the Nashville area. Alan Atkins, he's been with us 8 months now. He's got how about 25 plus years of experience in this industry, and he's seen everything beginning in. He has more certifications than I can count. So he's with us today. So let's go ahead and get through this. There's a lot of content. So if you have any questions, please ask me. You're off mute, so please feel free to ask me questions. And you can put yourself back on mute if you want to. I just want to give you availability to get back into the conversation. All right, let's go through the agenda here. For me, I want to talk about some new cyber threats and scams out there that are affecting the COVID-19 and the work from home workers. So we also have data security issues, what happens when you actually might have a compromise and what that looks like. And then we also steps to protect your company, data, and users. If my machine's running a little slow here for some reason, probably have too many things open, most likely. I do that a lot. So most people, they look at cybercrime, they think of this right here, some kid in someone's basement or some, hacking away, sending out these little exploits or phishing campaigns, something like that. It still happens, but it's really just a very small minority compared to what it really looks like, which is a lot of these things are based on corporate structures, corporate design, facilities to give a great place to work. It's the same thing with government agencies, state-sponsored attacks. So they are professional organizations, and they offer benefits and high salaries. We're talking about benefits, talking about PTO. Yeah, 3, 4, 6 weeks a year, maybe 8 weeks a year, depending on who you are. They give you insurance and daycares and so on and so forth, and they have high salaries. And some of these people ask, what does a high salary look like for them? Some of these hackers can make up to $700,000 a year. So it's pretty significant and pretty tempting for a lot of these very intelligent young people that can do a lot of different things, and they are lured into this industry. They have luxurious offices, offer daycare and other amenities, and they are structured like a large corporation. So I'm going to show you a chart here. This was provided by Checkpoint Research in the 2019 RSA conference. So in this structure, you'll see a kingpin, money operations manager, a technical manager, operations manager, all the way down through the whole structure down to the victim. And if you want to look at this as a corporate structure, in which it really is, they run it like a company. You got your kingpin, which is your CEO or president. This guy's in charge of everything, the vision, what they're going to be doing, and what's next. You got the CFO, the money guy, collecting and doing the financing. Technical manager, who's like a chief technology officer or chief information officer, all the way down to a chief operations officer. And then you go all the way to the left here, and you'll see the victim, and they see that victim as a customer. And I'll give you an example of that, because these guys, like if you have ransomware, they'll try to negotiate with you, try to help you understand. They'll negotiate the price of what it looks like to get your data back. They'll tell you, it's like, hey, we want to get your data back, and we don't want to actually take your data and sell it on the market. We're trying to help you here. That's the way they act, and that's really what they're doing. So you are a customer to them, and understand that. So whatever exploit there is, they're trying to get you, the customer, to provide them with revenue. All right. So right now, the cyber crimes that have been reported to the FBI are about 400%. Now you got to take that in the whole context. In the same period last year, there's only about 1,000 reports. Now there's 4,000. So there's so many more crimes that happen that aren't being reported. So when you see the other statistics in here, you got to take it with aspects of the whole thing, the entirety of the particular area. So I'm gonna look at this right here. The cyber attacks are up 37% as of April 1st. All right, this was provided by the MSSP alert site. This in 37% of millions of attacks is a lot of attacks. It happens. We have a little monitor on our screen showing the attacks happening all day long on one of our screens at the office. And typically you're going to see phishing attacks being one of the biggest parts of it. Those phishing attacks are going to be impersonation scams, which means they're going to impersonate particular companies or materials, or try to con you into thinking this is a legitimate business. And the business email compromise, you'll see these quite often these days, which is basically wire transfer scams. We've seen that with other businesses over the years, where people almost took the bait to these when transfer money to these accounts. And once the money gets transferred, you're not going to get it back. Because once it gets transferred, it automatically gets moved to another, so you're not going to trace that money, you're not going to get it back. And as a business, you don't have much recourse compared to a individual. So just be real cautious about these emails and make sure that there's always a policy in place. If someone says wire transfer, there's going to have to be some type of code or something in there that actually is legitimate, so you'll know that it's a valid attempt, a valid transfer. And then you got the extortion attacks, and those are the ones where they're trying to bribe you, saying I've got information on you. And these are just going through, these have been around for a long time. There's just new variants of it during this particular time period, and a lot more of it because they're having a field day sending these things out during this time when people are working from home. They're a little discombobulated. They're not actually in their work environment, so they get things are a little bit different for them. And there's other attacks. You got your malware, and malware consists of spyware, ransomware, and spyware is going to spy on you, take your information. Ransomware is going to encrypt your data, possibly steal it. If you don't pay it, they'll sell it. Viruses are basically, they set in your environment and can download and infect other machines, and they can actually incorporate other aspects of malware, spyware, ransomware, whatever that is within the organization. And then you have adware, which is those pesky little ads that pop up, but some of these are actually malicious, so you got to be careful about adware that's popping up on your machine. You got worms. These are more destructive. They'll go and delete your data. They'll delete your operating system, destroy your systems. You'll see those out there, especially if there's a corporate attack or a foreign entity trying to get information and ruin your business. And you have Trojans, which are pretty common. What they do, they act like a legitimate application, but they have nefarious activities are happening in the background. You're also dealing with, you wouldn't think about phone calls as being a cyber attack, but these are called robocalls. It's called phishing, which is voice phishing. That's when they're trying to call you and con you into actually giving money or being scared or you're in compliance with some kind of violation. And now there's smishing, which is text message phishing. And I don't know if you've received those. I have on my phone of someone trying to get me to click on a link for possible funding for my business, or hey, we got some hand sanitizer for sale and those kind of things. So they're going to be hitting you up with those kind of attacks. And let's look at the attack makeup. So 54% of these things are scams, 34% are brand impersonations, and 11% are blackmail, as we talked about, those extortion attacks, and 1% of those are the business email compromise, those wire transfer payments. All right, let's start talking about, let's go with phishing robocalls. All right, these are COVID-19 or work from home themed scams. They mimic a lot of official business communications, so they're going to convince you they're either a government agency. They might, if you're working for a big corporation, you might see these as coming from your organization. So they're trying to get you to actually either give them information or redirect you to a website or those kind of things to scam you out of your primarily money or other information about your business or other ways to get inside your organization. Smishing. Now things we're seeing now within the COVID-19, they're actually using this in conjunction with the robocalls as phishing attacks. So that allows, they'll call you and then they'll send you a text message, and the goal is to actually get you to click on a link within those text messages, and so it can affect your mobile devices and via these scams here, so they can get information from you. There's also tech support scams. All right, these are phone calls, pop-up warnings, web redirects targeting work from home users. So especially during these stay-at-home orders. And now this has happened before because the work from home is up significantly, but before it was about 2 to 5% of the population. And now you have all your Android and iOS threats. I'm just going to give you a couple of them. There's so many of them that it's so hard. I could spend weeks talking about all the different exploits for these devices. So these are two that I've seen quite a bit of is Light Spy and DMS Spy. These take full control of your devices. You know, you give them rights to your system. You think it's legitimate. They're going to take and they're going to exfiltrate your GPS information, where you are, what you're doing, SMS messages, browsing history, contacts, content messaging, whatever they can grab, they're going to take off there and actually send it to the attacker. And now you have also Anubis and Cerebrus that are added to for Android. These are actually Android-based attacks only. They're banking Trojans, but their mask is an app to inform you about COVID activities in your region. So if you're downloading these, please delete those and possibly get antivirus for your devices if at all possible, because they will infect and take all your information, especially banking information. Again, as an individual, you have a lot more recourse on those things in a bank, but as a business, you have a lot less. We've had one of our attorneys and one of his fellow attorneys, when they took all the money out, there was no recourse. So his insurance had to pay out on that. There was no way, as an individual, you can go to the bank, I didn't do that, you can get your money back. So just be real careful about the applications you put on your phone or your Android or even your Apple devices. And there's a increase in attacks on websites. So if there's any exploits, they take legitimate sites and they get compromised and they put malicious code or false content about COVID-19. So be wary of that also. Any of these COVID-19 information on government websites can be compromised. We also have DNS hijacking. And a lot of home users use these D-Link and Linksys routers. Well, this is an exploit inside these devices that actually can control DNS. What DNS is basically like a phone book for websites. So basically, it can intercept those requests, like you're going to something legitimate for COVID-19 or those kind of things, and it actually will redirect you to an exploited website. And these devices have these exploits, and a lot of these are older devices that haven't been replaced and cannot be updated. So be very cautious about that. If you have an older router at home or a D-Link or something like that, make sure you probably replace that. I'd recommend anything that's out of support be replaced immediately. Now, there's other type of related software attacks. We're looking at LuckyBot Info Stealer. It's been around for a while now, but it's spreading through World Health Organization false, or other legitimate looking emails, and it captures your credentials and your security tokens. And now, whoever said there's no honor among thieves, Hidden Tier is an open source ransomware framework. What that is basically is that these guys have written this code and they're willing to share it to the world so other people can take advantage of you also. And these are all being incorporated inside these COVID-19 work from home, email and phishing campaigns. And now there's Zoom bombing. If you're using Zoom, make sure you put passwords on your Zoom meetings, and please don't let those be public if you can avoid it. People can get in, they can actually listen in, they can steal your confidential, your intellectual property, your customer list, we're talking about them. Whatever is sensitive to your business could be in that meeting. So make sure you secure those down, because Zoom just recently had a compromise where I think they got a half million accounts for a penny each. Someone actually was able to get all that information from Zoom. And don't think it's just Zoom, it's a lot of other websites as well. So, but Zoom has been the poster child for those exploits and Zoom bombing. And here's what we're going to talk about. This is the biggest thing you're going to see, because it's the easiest way of getting your organization through these phishing campaigns. They got phishing, spear phishing, and whaling attacks targeting COVID-19. So I'm going to explain a little bit. Phishing is basically a broadcast. We're going to try to get as many people out there and see how many people can take the bait. Spear phishing is actually a target attack for people inside of a specific organization trying to get inside and infiltrate that organization. Where whaling attacks actually attacks the executives and high-level officials inside of an organization. So these are all been branded for COVID-19. Now, these are organized crime and an increase in individual hacker attacks. And the reason I say there's an increase in individual hacker attacks is, I'm not sure if I told you earlier, but there's a lot of people, a lot of these IT guys have been furloughed. So they got a lot of time on their hands, and some people are desperate for work, desperate for money, and they're actually starting to utilize these free and these freeware, these open source attacks against people to try to compromise and get information and actually sell your information out on the dark web. Now, there's also state-sponsored attacks from China and other countries such as Iran, North Korea, and some Eastern Bloc countries that don't have a lot of regulation and basically any kind of treaties with other countries. So these a lot of times are trying to attack other government agencies, trying to capture information, and they also could be doing corporate espionage, trying to capture information about your business. And just because you're small doesn't mean you have information that's not worth stealing. We've had customers that actually have specialized computerized systems they built in-house, and they have to safeguard that with their life. And those are just small, 50 to 150 user companies that are out there. Now, phishing attempts have soared over 600% since the end of February, and that's a month and a half now. Now, you also see counterfeit goods, fake cures, investments, and donations. These phishing attempts, these counterfeit goods could be mass markets like 3M or other brands that are nowhere near as good, maybe completely ineffective. Same thing with the cures like fake hydrochloroquine and those kind of things that actually could be either ineffective or actually deadly or very dangerous to the human body. You also have people trying to convince you to invest in different organizations to help find a cure, and then you're looking for donations. Fake, of course, all these are fake donations to these organizations, and once they get your financial information, they can take a lot more than just what you thought you donated or invested. Things that are happening out there, you'll see, is domain registrars are actually trying to halt all COVID-19 based domain names out there to keep these possible scams from happening. Facebook is blocking ads that are, say, COVID-19. I was on a conference call, on a marketing call today, and someone asked that question. Facebook is blocking those. You create an ad in Facebook about COVID-19, it's not going to make it to anybody. So they're trying to, these companies are trying to stop these scams from happening, but some will leak through. Interpol reported just in 1 week in March, they saw 18% increase in seizures of counterfeit and unauthorized antiviral medicines. And so far as April 15th, $13 million have been lost to U.S. citizens alone. And the things you're going to see in these phishing attacks, and this will be the last part in this section, is social engineering. This basically is trying to send you emails, trying to get you. They look very legitimate, trying to get you to click on links, maybe with a partner organization you're working with, a finance company or something like that, and they're just sending you this information. So they're trying to convince you. So be very wary of emails coming through. And there's some things we'll talk about in a few minutes on how to protect your data and protect your users. They're going to have these fake links going to these infected websites that will compromise your machines and possibly compromise your entire network. And then they'll also attach infected files. So that's pretty common. Also, those files will actually be will compromise. Let me give you a couple examples of these. Here's one that looks legitimate. It's coming from the World Health Organization. At least it looks like it, but that actually has a virus attached to that email. The next one, it comes from a specialist at the Wuhan Virus Advisory. Looks legitimate, but that PDF, you click on that PDF, your system comes compromised if it doesn't have the right anti-malware, anti-virus, and other tools to prevent that from happening. This one looks legitimate. It comes from the CDC. The link looks like CDC, but if you hover a mouse over it, and usually at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the URL where it actually goes to, because they can fake that. This mask is inside that link. It's going to a compromised website. That's one thing you always teach your users, to hover over a link before they click it. So let's talk about data security issues. What happens if you actually get compromised? All right. If you're a corporation, the corporate shield does not apply. Hey guys, and I forgot to unmute you. May I unmute you if you have any questions before we go any further? have any questions on what I've gone through. It's a lot of information. It's like drinking water from a fire hose.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so no questions yet. It's really helpful, very
I'm sorry, you might be turning your head when you're talking. I can't hear you.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, so we actually been a victim of a similar crime where a company had sent us a purchase order and credit application pretending to be a legitimate company. And we actually shipped them a significant amount of product and of course have not been able to gain payment. Turns out that that contact really doesn't work for a legitimate company and never has.
Yes, we actually get that. And Andrew and I, we're on this. We have info off our website. We get these on a very consistent basis. Hey, can you send us a quote for 25 routers and the specific information? And we've done that in the past. We never shipped anything because we won't ship anything without payment, especially for someone that we don't have a payment history with. But it happens at least 3 to 4 times a year. And unfortunately, once you ship that out, there's not a lot you can do. You have to actually deal with your insurance agency after that to maybe recoup that cost or that loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's very frustrating, especially when you actually check all the credit and the company comes back clean. And but we're working with we're doing various things to try to recoup or at least file police reports and things like that.
Yes, we suggest, even with some of our newer customers, when we do a project or something like that, we require like 50% up front. So that actually gets a payment history in place so you understand who they are. So and I'm sorry you experienced that because it's heartfelt after the fact.
Yes.
Yeah. And thank you very much for sharing that, because there's a lot of companies that actually have experienced that. They just won't talk about it. Now, talking about this, as a company on these issues, your corporate shield may not apply in many instances. So let's say if you're considered, most companies, if you're like under compliance, you got to name a security officer. That security officer can actually become individually responsible, and that corporate shield will not protect them. So they can actually be held financially and criminally responsible. So always be careful. If your security officer in your company does not want to do what you're telling them they need to do, you've got to get a letter of exception from them to protect yourself. And that might not be enough. So you might want to talk to an attorney before taking my advice, because I am not an attorney. But I have been considered a security officer in the past for companies I've worked with. And it has happened where I've required someone to actually give me a notice of why they're not going to do what I asked them to do. Get my mouse over here where it works now. Cyber insurance policies. Let me explain something. You can buy all this insurance that you want in the world. They will not pay if you don't have a plan of action to protect your data. And if you ever have a compromise, you must show that you had an active plan and you have records to prove that your compliance. So you can pay all the money in the world, but that insurance will not pay off if you are not actively working that plan. And that's the same thing with the compliance agencies. You got to make sure you're working with that. Otherwise, you can find yourself in a whole world of hurt. Ignorance is not an excuse, and they'll show that to you in court. So understand that if you're under compliance, you better know the rules of that compliance regulatory body. I'll give you a couple things you're dealing with. You're going to deal with fines. And here's just a few fines here. You got Dr. Porter. He was $100,000 for not implementing security rule requirements. Touchstone Medical here, in Tennessee. Actually, in 2019, we're fined $3 million to settle dealing with a breach of 300 PHI records. Elite Dental, it's a small dental practice, $10,000 for just putting PHI out on a social media site. That means someone probably got upset and said something about a patient online. And West Georgia Ambulance was fined $65,000 because they were non-compliant. They just refused to do it. So they're going to find they're actually targeting the small business because they know, first thing, that it's revenue for the compliance agencies, and they know that most small to medium-sized businesses are not actually investing in the technology and the framework to actually be compliant. And you also have your penalties, civil and criminal. That could mean you can't take certain type of patients, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you can actually have criminal penalties, as we talked about earlier. You can actually go to jail. You might have to serve time. You might have to do community service, whatever that looks like. And then you have your notification cost. The average cost of a breach record is $150, and that was in 2019. Of course, it's going to go up every year, but that's just the average. But if you look at specific injuries such as healthcare, the healthcare industry is roughly $429 per record for notification. That notification cost, of course, includes monitoring, credit monitoring, and other services you have to provide to those people that have been compromised. And then you have the financial industry has an average of about $210 per record, which really gets you wondering why the finance industry is lower than the healthcare industry, but it is. But HIPAA, the governing agency, is a lot more strict than a lot of other agencies. There's a long-term cost effect. The first year, you think you're done. The first year, what you say you spend $100,000. Well, the next year you're going to spend $22,000 to deal with that, or 22% of that, and then you're also going to spend 11% in the subsequent years. Now, here's your business risk. You got loss of data, and this is something that people don't understand, that 60% of small businesses fail after a cyber attack because of all the implications of that cyber attack. You got loss of revenue, right? That could be AR. I don't know about you or any other company, but I know we as a company, we've had customers that struggle to pay, or they don't pay, or they're slow pay. And if you don't inform them, they'll never pay. So if you lost your financial records, you might have lost revenue due to your AR not being complete. Loss of business, which is going to be your largest loss. Average business loses 3.9% of their current customer base, and it's higher for healthcare. That's a significant loss. And then now you got damaged reputation. Now, in the loss of revenue, you lost your existing customers, but this means loss of new business. I mean, it could be people that were in the pipeline before you're working with. They might not do business with you after that because of brand reputation. It can be other new people you're trying to work with, and they find out you had a breach, they won't do business with you. So you have loss of existing customers and loss of new business. So those are very significant especially to a small business. The other thing is, even a small business that has intellectual property, you could lose that. That could be design strategies, blueprints, whatever that looks like that makes you unique in your industry, what your strengths are. You got your hidden costs. Now, all these other things don't include this. So we're talking about legal fees, and legal fees are significant if there's a breach. It's quite significant. And, you're talking about $300 to $500 an hour attorneys. You're talking about public relations firms and whatever it takes to actually rebuild that brand. And you got your investigation costs, because you have a breach. You're going to have to investigate why it happened, what happened, how many records were stolen, and so on and so forth, which can add up to quite a bit of information. I mean, time and money over the period of the investigation. And then you're going to experience insurance premium hikes. And there's a unique phenomenon about people getting hacked, is you're going to get online vandalism. Not always, but it happens where someone actually compromises your website and damages your website, puts obscene words or whatever on your website. They also damage your reputation again. So that does happen. Now, how do you protect your company, your data, and your users? Let's talk about your weakest link, and that's your users. Most people, they just click innocently. They're not meaning to be malicious, but they are going to click on a lot of different things that come in inside your email and your organization. They click on different links on websites. So training is critical. So if you see like an email that looks fraudulent, make sure you inform your IT or your other people in your organization, hey, this is coming through, do not click on it, do not open it, and so on and so forth. There's a company that we work with, it's called KnowBe4. KnowBe4 actually is a training company. They help train people on these exploits and these threats. So their statistics show that 38% of untrained end users are susceptible to phishing. But however, that is reduced by 60% after 90 days of phishing training. So these are relatively inexpensive for most organizations, and it's worthwhile to actually have your users trained and attempted. What they do is basically they'll send out legitimate looking emails that if you study it would look like it's fake. I mean, with those little attributes. So it trains people. So if they click on it, they might be redirected to a site that says, hey, you have to do mandatory training, and that reports them to their supervisor or whoever to help them understand the threats that are out there. So that way they had to go through training. And after, like I said, after 90 days, 60% of these people that were susceptible before are not susceptible anymore. You want to protect your work data. Now, that means lock your screen, protect your data integrity. Do not leave passwords written down. We can't tell you how many times we see that happen. People leaving their passwords under their keyboards, on a piece of paper, a sticky note, or inside of a notebook. So if someone like your cleaning crew comes through, they can get that information. It's right there in front of them. Also, do this at home. Just if you're working from home, take that seriously. You don't want a 4-year-old walking over to your desktop deleting critical data from your network. That happens. Or you have a friend come over, or someone that you don't know, like a group of your kids' friends comes over. You have no idea who will see what you have on your screen. So keep it protected no matter where you are. And use two-factor and multi-factor authentication. If you don't know what that is, basically you got your username or password, and then it's an additional factor, such as a rotating key sequence, or in some banking applications, they have pictures, like you select a picture when you sign up for the account. Whatever that other factor is that helps protect you. So these are very critical. Now, there are exploits that you have to worry about if you use text-based multi-factor. If they're targeting mostly, like the whaling attacks, targeting executives or high-level officials within an organization, but they can actually port your phone number. Once they get your password, they get your username and password, they port your phone number. Now they get your multi-factor through a text. So just remember, if you can avoid texting, do that. It's better to get it through an email or through an application that's on your phone or on your desktop. Back up your data. This is critical. I just had a call last week with someone, a potential new customer, 14 years worth of data sitting on a device gone. So, what she's going to have to do is send that device off to a lab, and probably spend $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 to get that data back, if they're able to get it back at all, depending on how damaged the drive is. That also is one thing about using a secure offsite backup is it's not at the facility. So if you have a tornado, a fire, or heaven forbid someone comes and steals everything out of your office, you have your data someplace else that you can recover. Encrypted drives on your laptops, desktops, whatever, encrypted drives. So if that gets stolen, they cannot get to your data. And there's tools, DNS tools. DNS tools allow your organization, basically it sits on top of it, intercepts your DNS request, sends it out to a service like Umbrella or Firewall Control DNS server, or there's other services out there too that will take that link that they're clicking on to find out if that's a malicious site, and actually redirect it to basically another site that says this site has been restricted due to exploits or other content. Always something that's just an additional. They won't fix everything. All these things I'm talking about are just different layers of how to protect yourself. Just so you know, it's not a one size fits all. This is a whole security, and this is really just a small part of what that really looks like inside of securing your network. Your antivirus, your anti-malware, make sure it's updated. If your IT people find out, is this being updated on an hourly, couple hours, daily basis? Make sure it's updated as much as possible. And that just includes includes more than just the definition files. There's what they call the engine that runs in the background. That engine has to be upgraded, which is like a software update, because without that engine being there, it cannot detect some of the newer threats coming through. So those have to be updated on a periodic basis as well. You have content filtering. I can't tell you how many times I've been hated by an organization because I work with their executive team to put in content filtering. What that does is actually block specific website, either time-killing websites, content that actually might leave you vulnerable to an HR issue. You can imagine what that might be, and it also will help get into websites like gaming sites, anti-government sites and things like that might actually be exploited or have malware or some other content in it that's not good for the company or the user. Spam filters. Use a cloud-based spam filter. You can. What that does, it prevents that junk from ever getting down to the email boxes. So it's up in the cloud and it blocks, but it will notify. A good one will notify the users every so often what emails are actually out there that they might have to, that are legitimate. They might have to actually pull out of quarantine. And this, of course, is not happening right now because everybody's at home or they're not really going to Starbucks or anything like that. But do not connect to public Wi-Fi. And the reason you might think that's safe, it says, say you go to Starbucks, it looks like Starbucks. It could actually be someone with another device is mimicking it, and you're connecting to their device because you're closer. And then at that point, they're getting all your keys and encryption keys that you're negotiating over online. And at that point, they can actually read and get all the content going in and out of your computer. So don't connect to public Wi-Fi. Use a MiFi or tether to your cell phone. And secure your passwords. Don't put it in Excel. Excel's just another way of getting your information. If you get compromised, they can take the Excel sheet, they can brute force it in 2 to 5 days typically, and they'll get everything inside that spreadsheet. Use an industry sync password manager, typically cloud-based. They work better. They allow you to share. There's other ones you can put on your network, but the problem is some of those you can actually overwrite by accident. So we like cloud-based solutions. They like LastPass, or we use one in our organization called MyGlue, or IT Glue for us and MyGlue for our customers. Patching and updating. Always make sure your machines are patched, the operating system is patched, and the software is updated, because people don't realize just because you have the latest patches on operating system doesn't mean your software isn't an entry point into your network. Make sure they're updated as well. It means all Microsoft Office, PDF, Adobe, whatever that looks like, make sure they're updated. In home computers, we're seeing a lot of that activity now. That's the reason it's in here. Using completely unmanaged systems is unsafe. If you have to use home computers, we recommend that we can, for our customers that are using, we actually put our tools, our antivirus, our monitoring management tools on those devices to help prevent any kind of exploits that might expose your business to things that unsavory things that might be on a home computer. All right, and the next thing is reduce your digital footprint. We're getting, it's 45 minutes in here. We're getting close to the end of time. So we'll go through this really quick. This is for the individuals and the businesses, whoever is inside your organization. This is recommendations through multiple organizations on things you can do to reduce your digital footprint. Delete or deactivate old shopping and social networking accounts. If you're not using them anymore, remove them. Remove yourself from any data collection sites. Use stealth or incognito mode if need be inside, because those actually keep tracking going on inside the web browsers. Deactivate old email accounts. Check privacy settings on your social media. Lock those things down so people can't get your information, and make sure you only share those with people you know. And that's if you want that at all. Add extensions or plugins for tracker detection and blocking. And ask a website to remove you from the database. Now, I want to specify, if you don't know, if you're getting emails coming in and they have an unsubscribe button, if you don't know who those people are, don't hit that unsubscribe button, because that actually validates that you have that they hit a valid email. So just, be careful about those unsubscribe buttons. This is basically talking to a legitimate website and talking to them and saying, I want my name removed from their website. And right now, there's a use a right to be forgotten rule. It's right now the European GDPR, which is their regulation. Some states have already put this in theirs, and it's going to be in the future US regulations when they finalize those. They recommend use false or burner information for certain things. You don't want to give all your information out there. And don't click on those trivial surveys, because they're just tracking you and trying to collect as much information as possible. So, all right. I finished it up. 47 minutes with this worth of time here. If you have any questions, I'll unmute everyone and to see if you would like to ask any questions. All right. Well, please feel free. We are here to help. It was a lot of information, I know, to cover. We'd be glad to talk to you more detail in the future. If you have any questions, we can assist you. And if it's just general questions, about information, we'll be glad to help you out for free. So it's just, please feel free to contact us. Our information is on the screen here, our number, a website.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know it's a lot of information, but there's so many risks out there. I mean, I couldn't even come close to touching all the things that are actually happening now within this particular threat landscape we're in, which is different because we have everybody working from home. So they're getting hit with their personal emails, getting hit with their business emails, they're getting hit all over the place. They're discombobulated because they're not at work, so they don't have all those routines they have, so they can actually make mistakes and not be ready for it. It's just, everybody's out of the and it makes it more risky, and that's why there's so many targeted attempts on the COVID-19 work from home users.